welcome into the Week 8 Titans report card. In this video, I'm going to break down the best and worst individual performances from Tennessee's 17-10 win over Houston. Starting with the offense, Derrick Henry gets an A+. He had a bad rep in pass protection, but outside of that, this was one of his best performances of the season. I don't think revolving your offense around Derrick Henry is sustainable for the playoffs, but it does help you win pretty consistently against teams in the bottom half of the league. I've heard a few people say that Derrick Henry doesn't have the long speed that he did a couple years ago, and I think I agree with that. There's been a few plays this season where he gets caught from behind. I will say this one from week 8 is kind of difficult to evaluate because he's doing this move where he stiff arms a defender that's going low on him, and so he's moving laterally. He's not going straight downfield, and that lets the cornerback catch up to him. Regardless, even if he has lost a step, he's still playing like a top 3 running back in the NFL, and I would say he's doing a better job of creating chunk plays on a snap-to-snap basis instead of averaging 2 yards a carry and then breaking a 70-yard touchdown. It's a lot more 8 to 10-yard chunks. Dontrell Hilliard also had a really good game. I think Dontrell Hilliard is the best RB2 that the Titans have had since Derrick Henry when he was backing up DeMarco Murray. Early in the season, it was a trend of Dontrell Hilliard playing really well for the entire game except for one huge drop or a fumble or something, and he's cleaned up those mistakes and maintained the positive plays. So I'm a big fan of the 1-2 punch that they have going on in the backfield. Malik Willis, I did go with an F. This game didn't really change my outlook on him as a player, but when people during the draft process say that a player like Malik Willis needs to sit out a year before he can start, they're not just making stuff up out of thin air. He legitimately is not ready to command this type of offense. There's a few specific plays from Malik Willis that I want to break down. This first one is just play action bang. Wouldn't be surprised if this is the first play that they install in training camp, but he hesitates, doesn't get rid of the ball, and he takes a sack. The thing is, he executed this perfectly multiple times in preseason. It's not a difficult concept to execute. It's just if the linebacker bites and there's enough space, you throw it. But I think the issue with Malik Willis here, if I'm going to psychoanalyze him for a second, is if you go back and watch his college tape, it's boom bust, big time throw one play, horrible interception the next play. And I imagine the first thing that the Titans coaching staff said when he got to Nashville is you've got to clean up the turnovers. You can't just be ignoring safeties and lofting up these hole shots into triple coverage. And so my guess is that was their biggest priority with his development, getting his decision making to a point where they can trust him not to turn the ball over. And so I think Malik Willis is sort of overcorrecting, and when he sees this open window, he's thinking, okay, is this hook defender actually biting on the play action, or is he baiting me? Is this an example of the NFL being faster than college? Is this linebacker just going to zone off and intercept me? And he second guesses it and then takes the sack. Same sort of thing with this missed throw to Okonkwo. And unfortunately, there's no simple fix for this. He just needs to continue to take more reps and try to get as comfortable as possible in this offense so that he can operate it without having to think about every decision that he's making. I will defend him a little bit on this interception. It's still technically his fault to an extent at least, but keep in mind that this play is happening after the first one that we talked about where he missed Nick Westbrook-Ikhine wide open. I'm sure he comes off to the sideline, gets told that he needs to just fire it in there. So now they're running a different concept, but a similar sort of throw. Cody Hollister on a strike route against an outside leverage corner. Now he's late and inaccurate, so like I said, you would still downgrade him a little for this, but this is just kind of a pathetic route from Cody Hollister. Even if Malik Willis was accurate and on time, I still think this corner is going to undercut this throw. The tight ends had another really solid game. Jeff Swaim has had his 2 best games as a Titan in back-to-back weeks, at least as a run blocker. And Okonkwo isn't playing lights out or anything. He still needs to improve his play strength and his ability to sustain blocks. But over the last few weeks, he's had 1 or 2 highlight reel blocks in each game. And if before the season you asked me to lay out the realistic best-case scenario for Okonkwo's rookie season, given the fact that the Titans aren't a pass-heavy offense, this is pretty close to what it would look like. So he's continually getting better, and I'm excited to see how he develops over the rest of the season. Moving on to the offensive line, these grades are 90% based on run blocking because that's all the Titans did. Moving right to left, NPF had a really good game, especially in zone blocking. He's so good at getting to the second level under control and then using his length to get attached. And then for most of the season, the main area that he's struggled is with inside movement on zone runs, but he does a really nice job picking up the slant on this play. And the great thing about NPF is that all of his problems are technical mechanical issues that he can fix over the course of a couple weeks. You're seeing his ability to pick up stunts improve. He's getting a lot better at not just having the highlight blocks, but avoiding the negative blocks that result in loss of yards. And so for all of the draft capital that the Titans have spent at right tackle over the years, it's looking like they found the answer in the 3rd round. Nate Davis had a really good performance coming back from injury, and I haven't gotten to talk about him as much in these report card videos because I started them in week 3 or 4. But right now I'm seeing a lot of discussion and uncertainty about whether the Titans should prioritize re-signing Nate Davis. And I just want to put it out there for the record that I am 100% in favor of an extension. He's PFF's 6th highest graded guard this season, and it's not just a few game sample size. If you consider the last 7 or 8 weeks of last year and all the snaps that he's played this season, just that stretch of 12 or so games, Nate Davis has been playing like a $10 million a year plus guard. So I would say that he's actually a guy that you want to prioritize re-signing until his price goes up. Ben Jones gets an A-. Best game of the season so far for him. He's just so reliable week after week. He's going to give you B to B+ center play. Against the Texans defensive line, it was just a complete mismatch because Ben Jones' hand usage and technique is so polished. He was just getting his hands inside every snap and controlling defenders. This was kind of the dream game for Aaron Brewer, not having to pass protect, but even in just 14 pass blocking snaps, he still had this really bad loss. And this is a pretty repetitive segment every week, but he keeps putting the exact same thing on film. A handful of blown run blocks and then 2 or 3 pressures every game. This was another outstanding performance from the defense that's really hitting its stride. Christian Fulton had arguably the best game of his career. I charted all 37 of his coverage snaps, and he finished with 1 negatively graded play. Even on plays that he wasn't targeted, he was sticky in man coverage. This is a great job in zone coverage right here. He sees the hitch route from the number 1 and recognizes that they're probably running a smash concept, so he zones off and covers the corner route. Fulton had a couple busted coverages early in the season, and those were mental mistakes, not really him getting beat. But after those first 2 games, he's really settled in, and he's playing like a top 20 cornerback, I would say. It's almost impossible to rank corners across different schemes, but that's probably the range that I would have him in. Roger McCreary, I thought, really struggled early in the season, but he's played really well in the last 2 games. He gave up 1 big play on this over route, but he was locked down outside of that. This is a nice rep against Brandon Cooks, maintaining hand contact with the shoulder and staying on top. So overall, it's been a really encouraging start for Roger McCreary, and I'm interested to see what he looks like playing outside full-time with Elijah Molden probably coming back. Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry, and DeMarcus Walker all had really good games rushing the passer. I don't know if they all went to the same pass rushing camp or if this is just the Titans' favorite move to teach, but the stutter swipe swim accounts for, I would say, 80% of the Titans' pressures and sacks. Jeffrey Simmons is by far the best at it, but Danico Autry was just spamming this move over and over again, and the Texans' interior offensive line had no answers. We've talked a lot about Teair Tart over the last few weeks, and he had another solid game. And last year, Teair Tart was kind of like the Aaron Brewer of the defensive line. A lot of splash plays, but then if you actually watch the film, he was getting moved back pretty easily, especially on double teams. But this year, he's just unmovable. His anchor has gotten so much more consistent, and that's a huge reason that Tennessee's run defense has been so dominant. The last player that I'm going to discuss is Kevin Byard. During the Texans game, I tweeted that I think the Titans are going to draft a safety high this year. And by high, I mean like 3rd or 2nd round. And I still think he's a good safety. He's not a liability or someone that they need to replace. But the way that the Titans and every NFL team operates when it comes to personnel decisions with aging veterans is trying to project a player's regression arc and not be stuck with an expensive contract for a player that's no longer good. So if we say that Kevin Byard was playing at an A level last season and for the majority of his career, and this year he's had a moderate drop off down to like B-, I think the Titans are going to look at that and say, okay, we need to invest in a safety for the future to replace Kevin Byard over the next couple years. I haven't noticed any athletic drop off. He looks great carrying vertical routes down the field, but he's just been allowing way more separation than he did last season.